he's a young guy, 24 years of age. He's got really quick hands, gauges distance nicely. I haven't really seen him take a clean punch, so I'm still up in the air as to whether or not he has a good chin. Of course, it's kind of tough at heavyweight. But I think this fight really shows us what Joseph Parker is made of. And I'm going to say he takes a decision win. Takam's a tough guy. I think Parker learns a few things, but I think he gets a fairly clear decision here.
Yeah, I agree, and I think hopefully for the heavyweight division, Parker does look good, because if we get Parker looking good, that's just another guy to add into the mix at heavyweight division. And I think the heavyweight division is on the right track finally after about 15 years of not being.
Yeah, and not only that, if Parker keeps progressing, he keeps looking good in his wins, we could have a showdown between two good young heavyweights. I mean, potentially we could get Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua in the future. Sounds exciting to me.
All right, and then also we've got a Showtime card coming up with the Charlo brothers and Erislandy Lara. We'll start off with Jermell Charlo against John Jackson.
All right. Well, this is the lighter punching Charlo. He's a pretty straight up boxer. I like what I see out of the Charlo brothers, though they haven't really taken on the opposition to have flashes. They haven't had any flashes of brilliance. But this is the lighter punching Charlo. I expect him to outbox John Jackson here, but John Jackson he's not a pushover. He was beating Andy Lee until he got caught with that huge right hook.
Well, that's almost every fight Andy Lee's ever had that he won, though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he was losing against Korobov. Yeah, but he's got the big punch. He's got that equalizer. He ended up getting a draw with Quillen because of it too. But John Jackson's not a bad fighter. He's the son of Julian Jackson. Him and Julius. John Jackson looks like a pretty well-rounded guy. He's got good hand speed. He's got good pop. It wouldn't surprise me if he pulled the upset. But I expect Charlo's length and jab to be a little too much. I expect him to outbox him, but I expect it to be a close decision.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think Charlo will take him a little bit easier than that. But then we get to who I think is the more accomplished of the two Charlos, Jermall Charlo. He'll be fighting Austin Trout. Austin Trout, high-quality fighter. What's your take on that one?
I like that fight, too. I believe it's for the IBF title at 154. I think this is Charlo's first real step up as well. I mean, he beat up an old Bunbridge. Bunbridge just kind of been hanging around waiting for somebody to pick him off anyways. But I see this as a solid test. Granted, the good Austin Trout shows up. He's been hot or cold. And if he shows up at his best, I expect him to give Charlo a good test. But I think he's kind of on the downside. I could be wrong there, but Trout just has looked lesser since his pinnacle, which was being Miguel Cotto. And he looked
since the Alvarez fight, or since right before the Alvarez fight, I don't think he's looked quite as good. I mean, he really good fighter when he fought Miguel Cotto, did really well there. But I think against Alvarez and Lara, I think he has slipped some. Yeah, he has. I mean, after Canelo, he got completely outboxed by Lara, and then he struggled with, I'm missing the name now, but I know he struggled with an Australian guy where he got dropped like one or two times. He just hasn't looked good. He looked good in his last fight. I'll give him that, but he just kind of seems like he seems to have mental issues. That's what I think it is. He's got good skill, but I don't think the mental confidence is there. And I think maybe the two losses to Alvarez and Lara kind of changed him up top then?
I do. Especially he fought Alvarez pretty closely, but the Lara fight, he just wasn't competitive in. I mean, Lara outboxed him the whole way, dropped him. I don't think he has the mental capacity to be a top flight fighter anymore. So I expect the harder punching Charlo to kind of take away that confidence with the jab, beat him up a little bit. I actually expect a late round knockout. Yeah,
I agree. I think Charlo might even get him slightly earlier than that. But I think this is the end of the road for Trout if he doesn't get a win also. So maybe he'll react a little bit different. Then we've got the main event. We got Erislandy Lara against Vans Martirosyan. What's your take there? It's two good fighters. Should be a competitive fight.
Yeah, should be. I mean, this is a rematch. Maybe an
they drew in the first fight.
Yeah, they did. It ended in a technical draw. I believe it was a cut. I can't remember if it was Martirosyan or Lara. I can't remember which one had the cut. But I thought Lara was winning that fight up until that point. I didn't agree with the draw. But I think Lara takes another decision here. Lara looked a little more active in his last fight, which I was excited for. You know, he let his hands go, and that's exactly what he should have done on his biggest stage against Canelo Alvarez. But I expect Lara to take another decision here. Martirosyan's best punch. He's a good fighter. Martirosyan is a top 10 level kind of guy, but the low end top 10. He fought a ton of
guys like Ishe Smith. Jermell Charlo, he lost the decision to, I think.
Yeah, he's fought a lot of top guys, and he's performed well in some, been completely outboxed in others. Here I expect Lara, who I believe is the better fighter. I expect he adjusted better after the first fight. I just expect him to outbox. Martirosyan, he'll just look for that straight right hand all night, but I don't expect Lara to fall for it. I think he won the clear decision here.
Yeah, I think Lara by decision, too. The only problem with Lara is there's not too many great Lara fights. I mean, he's always in the fights. I mean, most of them it seems like he wins. Sometimes he doesn't get the decisions, but I mean, he's beaten some really good guys. He beat Austin Trout, Ishe Smith, Alfredo Angulo, lost a close split decision to Alvarez, who I know a lot of people thought that Lara actually beat Alvarez. But that brings us to the end of previewing the fights. I mean, is there anything else you want to discuss?
Well, other than that, I mean, the Deontay Wilder-Alexander fight is called off. But there's some solid fights on the. I mean, the card's still going forward, and there's still some solid fights on there. You know, like Dennis Lebedev, he'll be fighting Victor Ramirez, to unify titles at cruiserweight.
Yeah, Lebedev's the cruiserweight, right?
Yeah, he is. He's the guy who
knocked out Roy Jones.
Exactly. Yep. Last round, put him to sleep.
So here's my question, real quick. Roy Jones, do you think that, I mean, most boxers, I mean, they fight too long and they lose fights they shouldn't, but it doesn't seem like it really hurts what people think of them. Do you think that Roy going on 10, maybe even 15 years longer than he should have is going to hurt his reputation and the way people look back at his career?
For me, I try to focus more on what he did when he was at his best, because
me too. But I mean, like a normal fan.
I think it will hurt him. The reason being is because he keeps it. I think it's becoming engraved in people's minds now. He keeps getting knocked out. He's just continuously just punching in that fact that he just doesn't have a good chin. I didn't have a problem with Roy Jones continuing on with some of the level of opponents that he was fighting. It didn't bother me too much if he was winning fights against these lower tier guys, staying active, doing what he loved. That was all good and well. But I think most people look at this and hold it against him. Again, they just keep seeing him get knocked out, and I just think that plays on too many people's minds. I've seen people bring it up in arguments like, oh, well, he's chinning and he's this and he's that. Well, a prime Roy Jones Jr. was a rare specimen.
But we don't know if a prime Roy Jones was chinny because he never got hit on the chin.
Right, and
couldn't touch him.
No, and I mean, imagine if Roy Jones would have just beaten Tarver, not given him in the rematch, or maybe retired after the John Ruiz fight. Nobody would have ever known.
Yeah, or even just retire after Glenn Johnson knocked him out.
Yeah.
Because Glenn Johnson wasn't a great puncher, but Glenn Johnson was a damn good light heavyweight.
Oh yeah.
So I think if he retires then, I think he goes down as probably a top 5 light heavyweight. And I mean, really, when you look at him, if you were to match him up with a Michael Spinks or a Bob Foster, I think those guys would have a lot of trouble with him. Oh yeah,
I think a prime Roy Jones Jr. is trouble for just about anybody. I mean, there's nobody that I can think of who I would expect to go in there and just maul him and get him out of there. Roy Jones Jr. is one of the most naturally gifted men I've ever seen. For me, of course, it all depends on your criteria. If you see a prime Roy Jones Jr. and you do realize what a rare talent he is, then you'd have a tendency to place him a little higher. But, of course, I do know some people who will, as you can do with just about any boxer, Roy Jones he was actually never the lineal champion at 175. That was Darius Michalczewski.
Yeah, who he never fought.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I know guys who are like, oh, well, he should have never went over to Europe, or I don't even know what happened there, but, people will hold that against him.
Michalczewski would not fight outside of, I think, Germany.
Right. Well, I think
Jones refused to go there, but you know what? If that happens to a Muhammad Ali or a Marvin Hagler, their ass is on a plane to Germany to take that belt.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
And I think a lot of that is a reason why this can also affect him, because even guys that are veterans know that. I mean, he could have fought Nigel Benn. He had Michael Watson, Stevie Collins. You had all kind of guys that were solid super middleweight, light heavyweights that he'd never fought.
Right. Yep. And I mean, it's kind of comes with this generation. I mean, Roy Jones, Floyd, they look the part, but because of the boxing politics and their ability to nitpick and this A-side, B-side nonsense, he was allowed to get away with it. I mean, a lot of people overlook the fact that Roy Jones never fought guys like Ben or Collins or Nunn or whomever, never gave Hopkins a rematch, not even sure how serious that was, never fought Michalczewski. People will continue to hold that against him, but then you look at his fight against James Toney, who was a pound-for-pounder at the time, and, he schools him. He beats Bernard Hopkins. Hopkins was a little green at the time, but,
Hopkins was a lot green at that time, though.
He was. But, I mean, he was, in my opinion, he was still a good fighter. And I still think that win holds, some merit.
I think Hopkins is overrated, though. Do you think I'm crazy there?
I think overrated. It's hard to say. See, because I put more emphasis on resume than anything. Who you beat and how you beat them weighs more heavily.
My problem with him is his resume.
It is. I mean, at 160, at 160, he had one of the weakest eras of any champion that I can think of. And of course the addition of class like 154 have thinned 160 out.
Yeah, when you're fighting Robert Allen 3 times, there's something wrong there.
Right, and a lot of people don't bring this up. A lot of people who discredit Golovkin, ignore what Hopkins, went through. And
Golovkin's already beat better people than what Hopkins beat.
Well, I actually wrote an article about this, and I agree. Golovkin he's fought more people, more former champions. He fought more rated people, in his few defenses than Hopkins did. And the funny thing is, Hopkins was a little bit older when he was getting this stuff done too. He might have been a year or two older than Golovkin. But yeah, he's fighting Robert Allen and Antoine Eccles and
he fought Eccles a couple times, I think.
Joe Lipsy. He fought an old John David Jackson. Some people look at that and they're like, oh, well, he was good. No, John David Jackson lost to a guy who was like 9-6-1 or something, going right before the Hopkins fight.
Now, John David Jackson was a solid fighter in about 1985.
Yeah, and he fought Hopkins.
I think didn't he fight Mike McCallum?
I think
getting
so.
Him mixed up with somebody? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not even sure, but yeah. We go to his resume, and he had 20 defenses of his title. Of course, I think only about 7 of those were lineal. So, I know some of the old-time folks hold that against him. Yeah, he's fighting Steve Frank and Segundo Mercado, William Bo James. He fought Glenn Johnson, a young Johnson. Sid Vanderpool, Keith Holmes. His best wins were against, Felix Trinidad, which was, a fine performance.
That was way above Trinidad's main weight, though.
Yeah, he wasn't as good, but to Trinidad's credit, he did have some good performances. I did find it impressive that he destroyed Joppy. Not that Joppy was, an elite fighter, but I thought it was
Joppy out like the 5th round, I think, and dominated him.
Yeah, he whooped his ass. But yeah, I think, and going back to the Golovkin thing, I know it's kind of off topic. but I think Golovkin would be smart staying down at